by saying that the statistics being given about the percentage scored by Labour Party in the 2023 general election is erroneous.
It's what?
Erroneous. It's not correct.
Yeah, but the election was challenged all the way to the Supreme Court.
Let me land, Dr. Abati.
Okay.
We have a situation where figures are allotted to various political parties. The tsunami that greeted the presidential election in Delta State was unprecedented for Labour Party. And some of us, including my very self, were offered humongous sums of money, such that I've never seen in my life, to support the ruling party, PDP, who rejected it on principle. And during the coalition, our people were thoroughly brutalized. We have figures to show that in Delta State, Labour Party won the election at the governorship level and the presidential level. It was also attested by the former deputy, I think, chairman of APC South during his interview or discussion with Dr. Pato Tommy recently on a radio station. So yeah, we know you won the election, but we gave you whatever we felt like. So this idea of allotting figures to political parties, we accepted it because we were not ready for it. We did not expect the kind of shenanigan that went on during the election. We're better prepared now.
Yeah, but I wanted you to talk about the defection.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Basically, it's we have harlots of Jericho in Delta State. Harlots of Jericho. People who will use their positions to invite foreigners to invade them and occupy the territory. But we know better. They are protecting their loot. Delta State, over the past how many years of democracy, has been bedeviled by inept leadership. We all know it, and we've been crying out. Unfortunately, we have a situation where there's hunger in the land. It has been weaponized. But we are trying as much as possible to let the people know that despite these defections, their lot will not be better if they keep following those characters that I call harlots of Jericho. It's not going to affect anything. One, I do agree with Ezago for once, that there'll be serious implosion. Look at the characters that have defected for personal interest. All of them without exception. If you talk about Delta North, it's going to be worse because those defecting are all gunning for the same positions. I wonder how it's going to pan out. So let them go. We're waiting for them. It's not going to affect anything. The fortunes of Labour will be better enhanced by their defection.
Okay, a number of issues to unpack here. The first being, I'd love to know what the status of Labour Party in Delta State is currently. It's been almost 2 years, well, over 2 years, excuse me, since the presidential election. And of course, we know that Labour Party had a moment, but that many people call the Peter Obi effect. However, since then, so many things have happened within your party, especially at a national level. Does Labour Party Delta State, are you behind Abure? Are you behind Nenadi? Well, I'd love to know from you, which way is Labour Party in Delta State inclined? And how are you looking for ways to reconcile those wins that you saw during the presidential election that didn't materialize during the gubernatorial election? Is there any way you think you can reclaim the disparity that happened there in your favor?
There is something that people are talking about generally now about Labour Party. In Delta State, we believe that Peter Obi's presidential ambition was given birth in Delta State. The umbilical cord of the obedient movement is buried in Asaba. So we don't even reckon with Labour Party as a party at the moment in Delta State. In answer to your question, we see
obedience in Delta State. You're not Labour Party.
Absolutely. So we look at the situation. We interact with some of them. They are our friends, but we know that most of them are agents of people who believe that money buys everything. Recently, we saw somebody called Julius Abure calling on the president to intervene in Labour Party affair. For God's sake, what does he want the president to do? You're calling a lion to come and interfere in the affairs of sheep. It's not going to work. So we just discountenance them. What is happening in this country is lack of intrepidity in the handling of judicial matters by the courts. The Supreme Court gave a judgment. They did not go fully to the end. You say that Julius Abure's tenure has expired. What does that imply? If his tenure has expired, the Constitution of Labour Party, NEC, says that the highest ranking officer becomes the head of NEC. And the highest ranking officer in Labour Party today is the governor of Abia State, followed by his deputy, the leadership of NLC and TUC. They form the NEC, and they should take decisions. But we know how justice is procured in this country. I'm not going to dwell on that now. But we are working. We're not deterred. We are working. And at the appropriate time, when the whistle is blown, we shall know who controls Delta State.
Well, it would be interesting to hear a bit of your plans, because against the backdrop of what we're discussing really is a really shifting political landscape. It seems with every moment the APC continues to get stronger and stronger, aided by these defections from the PDP. Yesterday we've spoken at length about the People's Democratic Party, and the analogy was given that they're in intensive care. It's a very, very dire situation for the party. But for Labour Party, it does seem as though you're somewhat shielded from this defections issue on scale. But if you're looking ahead to the future, to 2027, what plans do you have in place to really be the formidable opposition that the PDP is so far struggling to do?
I'm going to a football match against an opponent, and you want me to come and expose my tactics to play football match with my opponent. It doesn't happen. I'm not here to come and tell you our strategy, but we are planning.
What about your team? Perhaps not your strategy. Who are your team?
Very strong, very strong. I can tell you for
Who's
sure.
up front for you?
We have obedience in Delta State that is ready to overwhelm any political party. I say it categorically. The obedient movement in Delta State will, not can, will overwhelm the merger of PDP and APC. Those people are slogan-based political parties.
Okay, Diopam, just before we go, you've been saying you have obedience in Delta State that will overwhelm any party. Well, obedience, that is not the title of any political party in the country. So can you tell us the difference between obedience and the Labour Party? Because you can only vie for an elective position on the platform of a political party. Or is obedience specially registered as a political party in Delta State?
You're falling back to what she asked me now to tell the strategy we're going to use. Obedience is not a political. Dr. Bati, you're too intelligent to try and catch me that way now. You're a lawyer. You know, let me tell you, obedience is a movement. You understand? And anywhere we go, we'll overwhelm them. It's like a weevil. You know how a weevil comes to a farm and overtakes it and overwhelms it? We are waiting for the president of NLC, Joe Ajero, has written to INEC, giving them timeline to use the Supreme Court's judgment to determine, we're law-abiding people, the leadership of Labour Party. That will determine the obedient movement. And within 48, is it, I don't know, 28 days he gave them. And when that happens, you will hear from us, and then our strategy will be known to you. Until then, we'll keep it quiet.
Okay, thank you for joining us. But one major takeaway for me, the phrase you use, the harlots from Jericho in Delta State. When I use that phrase another time,
quote me.
Please, they should know that.
Assessing that democracy is freedom of speech, and the fact that you can sit here and criticize the government and be quite, forceful in your criticism, forthright, that is a manifestation of at least a measure of democracy.
Charles, I can tell you that even me is being harassed every day. There's no freedom of speech. And you know that yourself, Charles. And I can tell you, and there's so many people who are being detained in one place or the other because they've made one statement or anything.
Well, I have not been harassed, to be fair. But
yes, yes, maybe you've not been, but I have been.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So I can tell you that even that doesn't exist. But when you say, yes, he exists, Charles, when you go for an exam and you score 10%, it's a fail. I'm just giving you the real measure of democracy. We failed in all of them. So it doesn't exist.
So having expressed this alarm, what do you anticipate to be the negative consequences of that threat to democracy that you talk about? What track is Nigeria heading towards as a result, and how damaging might that be? And how would you suggest Nigerians go about counteracting that?
Well, for me, we're headed, you know where we're headed. It will get worse. And when it gets worse, we're now going to threaten to a state of nature, of anarchy, where anybody can do anything you want. Everything is collapsing. Even when the people who are supposed to be seeing it are not seeing it. But you can see the negative impact in all the critical areas, even the education you mentioned, when you said people are being given scholarship to go to school.
Student loans.
Student loans. What is happening in our universities, Charles? Our universities now are politicized, where appointments for management of universities are now political. You now fail local government election, you're appointed on your university board, university governing board, where vice chancellors, they even have been appointed without merits and everything. And the consequences that you see universities now giving honorary degree to all manner of character of people. So even that is deteriorating.
His aides, and again, we have to balance the discussion, deny that there is any such threat to democracy. They say you're pulling the trigger on a non-existent gun and creating an unnecessary level of uncertainty where there is none. I wonder what your reaction is to that.
Charles, I said go to the people. It is not about me. I'm one with the people. They can say anything they like. You know, when you are in government, you claim anything. But I deal with the reality. The reality is that things are headed south. Go and check all indices of development anywhere. I've told you what is improving. Is our literacy level improving? Is our health condition improving? Even them that are in government don't even go to hospitals here. So that shows that it's not even improving. The same thing goes. Are people being pulled out of poverty? There's still hunger everywhere. Is the agricultural produce increasing? Is manufacturing increasing? No. So where is it?
So in the context of this high uncertainty with regard to democracy and the rule of law that you talk about, that suggests unpredictability and, you know, especially for international investors, which is something they do not like. They don't like unpredictability. They don't like the lack of the rule of law, because obviously it threatens their investments. And ultimately that has an impact from what you're saying on the economy, doesn't it?
That's it. Charles, the first thing you can say that you have a government is security of life and property, rule of law. These are intangible assets that you cannot ignore. It is critical. People go where there's law and order. Nobody goes where there's chaos. Where do you see the rule of law? You are here. You don't need to. I don't need anybody to tell you. You see it every day.
But I mean, quite a number of them have suggested that you should team up with Atiku Abubakar as his deputy with an agreement that after one term he will work to make you president. They say that without this alliance, both you and Atiku will lose in 2027. What is your reaction to that?
Charles, elections are won, elections are lost by the vote of the people. All these things you're talking and all these things people are talking is because we are not democratic. Charles, we are talking of working together for the sake of the country, not because of political posts. I've said it before.
But if you don't have political power, you
No.
won't be able to change the country.
Charles, agree with that. That's why I've always said, I'm not desperate to be president. I'm desperate to see Nigeria work. Charles, it is all these alliances, all these groupings that brought us to where we are today. Because people were blinded. Instead of seeing what they would do to make the country work, make the country productive, they were focused on wrestling power. What are we going to use the power to do?
Yeah, but you ran for office in 2023. You wanted to wrest power from
Yes,
the
because
APC.
I wanted to do something.
Right.
Charles, I wanted to do something. I wanted to use it. By now, you would have been seeing the impact on education visibly. And I'm not talking about coming to say, people coming to say it in TVs. You will be seeing it visibly. I would have even been visiting the schools.
Well, that's why that's why some
The
of
health, you would have been seeing the primary. We have over 70% of our primary care are not functional.
But that's
You
why
would have
some of
seen
your
the change.
that's why some of your supporters are saying that for you to make this happen, you have to be able, you've got to be positioned, they say, to win the presidency.
Don't say my support. Don't just say some of my followers. I want
your
Nigerians to know
supporters.
it is about their country.
Indeed.
So many Nigerians today don't know where the next meal will come from. They don't know. Several people have been to hospitals where people can't leave the hospitals because they can't pay. We have less than 5% insurance, health insurance in this country, when comparable countries like Indonesia have 95%.
Yes, but you're not going to be able to change that
no,
unless you become president.
No, but the people have to know
Right.
and know that this man can do it.
Well, the argument is that even if you win in 2027, you'll be forced or prevailed upon to hand over to the North after just one term in 2031, which will not be enough for you to fulfill these electoral, let me just make the point, these electoral promises. Whereas if you worked with a one-term Northern presidency in 2027, you'd be more likely to scale through in 2031, assuming the North keeps to the agreement. Does that sound like a reasonable proposal to you? Because you mentioned Yar'Adua, who came into office. He had to come into office before he started trying to change things.
Charles, the president that is there today, how many years has he stayed? 2 years. And you could see where we are. Look at the turn of things in 2 years. That means that you can change things in 2 years. If I was there in 2 years, Charles, that you would have seen considerable change. In critical areas, I would have tackled corruption head on. I would have reduced cost of governance. And you will see it. People will feel it. And those monies invested in critical areas. Our primary health care today, I told you, 70% are not functional. And we spent over 35 billion in conference center. Which conference? Who is coming for the conference? You need to invest your money properly. Just you have been seeing borrowed money invested in critical area. We, a country in Bangladesh with 148,000 square kilometers of land, is producing about 60 million metric tons of rice. And us, with over 6 times that size of land, cannot do 10% of that. Charles, there's room here. You talked about devaluation of Naira. There's nothing wrong in devaluation. I would have done something. I would have allowed the Naira to float, but I would have done it in an organized manner. There will be productivity. The idea of devaluing your currency, allowing it to float, to be cheaper, is that you have productivity so you can export, so people can come and buy. But when you don't have productivity and you devalue your currency, it's double whammy because you have nothing to sell. So I would have injected money in productivity. Today, nobody is producing anything. Somebody told me a few days ago, say, oh, they've removed there's no more tax or this on some of the manufacturing inputs and everything. And all. I said, no. How can you manufacture? How can you do business when your interest rate is over 40%? Yeah, one of the biggest costs of manufacturing today, cost of production today, is interest rate. Charles, nobody borrows money at over 40% to do a business that is straight. You can only borrow, it's only government that is borrowing that amount of money at that cost. So you need to do the right things, and you can do it.
So what would be the thrust of your attack then on President Tinubu in 2027 that might tip the balance in your favor? I mean, you've talked about, the economy, you've talked about democracy, the rule of law, which you say suffered a setback. Given all that, what would be your strategy to erode confidence in the president and convince the Nigerian people to go with you rather than him?
It is not enough that your aides are running around. You, who is the main person, have to have an idea, be competent, have the capacity, have the compassion, the energy to do the job. It is not something you can lease out. Governance, leadership, is not something you can just hire somebody else to do for you. You are the leader. You should be the one answerable to the people, doing the right things. You're the chief person, and you should be in charge. We have too much of delegated responsibility here. That shouldn't be.